Here is some footage of when we first visited Sodom.
Like Gomorrah, the cream ashen structures against the brown-colored mountains was even more marked at this level, but the architecture and layout of the city was very different. The buildings seemed to be arranged in terraces. Stream beds and watercourses, pebbles, water in abundance running right through the city, dams directing water sometimes under buildings, structures lining the banks of the streams, fossils, some that looked like mussels, fused together by what appears to be a great burst of heat. Simon and Einar had been here several times now and wanted to see the ruins in more detail. During the steep and slippery climb, he fell to thinking of the people who had lived here. Which of these piles would have housed Lot and his family? Which of these streets was trod by the angels? They returned to a large fortress-like construction. Similar in style to the buildings of Gomorrah at the bottom, it was topped with a stone wall with mortar joints, windows, and doors. Einar and Peter decided to risk climbing to the top. Einar and Peter continued to climb steadily, while Simon filmed from the safety of the ground and was most relieved when Einar reached the top. The ground underfoot was dry and crumbly, with no way of knowing which sections were hollow. The nearest help was many miles away. But fortune favored the brave, and they returned safely to Earth. The party were drawn once more to the dams and weirs of the old city, with an intact well constructed of the same materials as the fortress walls. It amazed everyone that they were able to look at and touch this very large piece of history after nearly 4 millennia. Genesis 13, verse 10. Lot looked up and saw that the whole plain of Jordan was well watered. They met a man living in a tent, pumping water in the area, and decided to ask him what he thought the building had been. He replied that a king had lived here.
This is the king.
Was he speaking of the king of Sodom? Einar had decided to scale another of the buildings they had filmed on the last trip, and Simon jokingly reminded him that he was not insured. Einar, meanwhile, was being entertained with coffee by the gentleman in the tent. They noticed a large entrance to a nearby building and discussed the wisdom of entering it. Peter was keen to do so and entered first, while Simon followed more slowly with the camera. Suddenly, Simon was nearly trampled to death as Peter flew past him, shouting that the place was full of bats. They decided that it had to be explored, however, and Simon led the way with the camera, with Peter following and providing much-needed moral support. Having no light source, they both strained their eyes to determine the full extent of the cave or room. Switching the camera to night mode merely resulted in very jumpy pictures, and a cigarette lighter had little more effect. The shadows stretched away into the distance, but nothing more could be done without illumination, and they withdrew.